A broke student sent her resume to the wrong email. The Billionaire CEO hired her immediately. At 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday night, Maya Rodriguez sat in the 24-hour computer lab at UCLA, surrounded by empty energy drink cans and crumpled rejection letters, desperately sending her resume to what she thought was her last chance at avoiding complete financial disaster. Her rent was 3 weeks overdue. Her meal plan had expired 2 months ago, and the part-time tutoring job that had barely kept her afloat had just ended when her only regular student graduated early. Maya was 8 months away from earning her degree in computer science, but 8 months might as well have been 8 years if she couldn't find a way to pay for housing, food, and textbooks. In her exhaustion and desperation, Maya didn't notice that she had accidentally typed richardsonTechemail.com instead of richardsontechemail.com when applying for an entry-level programming position at Richardson Technologies, a small startup that offered the kind of basic coding work she hoped might cover her expenses until graduation. What Maya couldn't have known was that richardsontechemail.com belonged to Richard Chen, founder and CEO of Chen Dynamics, a Fortune 500 technology empire worth $12 billion, who was working late in his penthouse office because insomnia and perfectionism had made normal sleep schedules impossible since his company's stock price hit record highs 6 months earlier. Richard Chen was about to receive the most interesting email of his career, not because of Maya's qualifications or experience, but because her cover letter contained something he hadn't encountered in 20 years of business, complete, desperate honesty about failure, struggle, and the kind of raw determination that no amount of money could purchase. The accidental email that Maya sent to the wrong address was about to change both their lives in ways neither success nor poverty could have predicted. If you find value in real stories told with clarity and truth, make sure to subscribe to stay informed with Real Father Story. Maya Rodriguez had been surviving on 2 hours of sleep per night for the past month, a schedule that made even simple tasks like typing email addresses feel monumentally difficult. At 22, Maya had already overcome more obstacles than most people faced in a lifetime. She was the first person in her family to attend college, working her way through UCLA, while sending half her earnings home to help her mother pay rent in their East LA apartment. Her father had left when Maya was 16. Her younger brother Carlos was still in high school, and her mother Maria worked double shifts as a hospital janitor to keep their family housed and fed. Maya's academic performance was exceptional. She maintained a 3.9 GPA while working 20 hours per week tutoring struggling students in mathematics and computer science. But academic excellence meant nothing if she couldn't afford to stay enrolled long enough to graduate. The financial crisis had started 3 months earlier when her biggest tutoring client, a wealthy family in Beverly Hills, had decided their son no longer needed academic support. Maya's income dropped by 60% overnight, forcing her to choose between textbooks and groceries, between rent payments and gas money for her 15-year-old Honda Civic. She had applied for every part-time job she could find, retail positions that required weekend availability. She couldn't manage with her class schedule, food service jobs that paid minimum wage, but demanded full-time commitment internships that were unpaid, but offered valuable experience she couldn't afford to gain. Maya's latest hope was Richardson Technologies, a startup she'd found through UCLA's job board that advertised entry-level programming positions perfect for students with basic coding skills. The pay was modest but steady, and they emphasized flexibility for students balancing work with academic requirements. Sitting in the computer lab at nearly 3 a.m., Maya crafted what she hoped would be the cover letter that saved her college career. Dear hiring manager, I am writing to apply for the entry-level programming position advertised through UCLA's Career Services. I am a senior computer science major with a 3.9 GPA. But I need to be honest about my situation because I believe honesty is more valuable than perfect presentation. I am not the most experienced candidate you will consider. I have not completed prestigious internships at major tech companies because I have spent the past 4 years working to pay for school while helping support my family. I have not contributed to open-source projects or attended expensive coding boot camps because every spare hour has been dedicated to tutoring other students to earn money for rent and groceries. What I can offer is complete dedication, fast learning ability, and the kind of work ethic that comes from understanding that failure is not an option when your family depends on your success. I have taught myself 3 programming languages through free online resources, maintained high academic performance while working 20 hours per week, and solved complex problems with limited resources because that has been my life for the past 4 years. I am not applying for this position because it fits my career goals or offers advancement opportunities. I am applying because I need steady income to finish my degree, and I will work harder than any other candidate you interview because this job represents the difference between graduating and dropping out 8 months before earning my diploma. I realize this level of honesty might be unusual in a cover letter, but I would rather be authentic about my circumstances than pretend to be someone I'm not. If you are looking for someone who will treat this opportunity as essential rather than optional, I am that person. Thank you for your consideration. Sincerely, Maya Rodriguez. Maya attached her resume, 2 pages that listed her academic achievements, her tutoring experience, and the programming skills she had developed through online courses and personal projects. Nothing impressive by Silicon Valley standards, but evidence of steady progress and self-directed learning. In her exhaustion, Maya typed the email address from memory rather than copying it from her notes. Richardson@kegmail.com. Close enough to the company's actual email format that her tired brain didn't register the mistake. Maya hit send at 2:52 a.m., then gathered her belongings and drove home to her studio apartment where she would try to sleep for 3 hours before her 8 a.m. data structures class. What Maya didn't know was that her brutally honest cover letter had just landed in the inbox of someone who could solve her financial problems with a single decision, but who was about to be more impressed by her authenticity than by any qualifications she could have listed. Meanwhile, in his penthouse office 40 floors above downtown Los Angeles, Richard Chen was experiencing another sleepless night caused by the kind of success-induced anxiety that no amount of wealth seemed capable of curing. At 45, Richard had built Chen Dynamics from a college dorm room startup into one of the most innovative technology companies in the world. His enterprise software solutions powered everything from hospital systems to NASA missions. His patents had revolutionized data processing efficiency, and his personal net worth exceeded $12 billion. But success at Richard's level came with isolation that money couldn't solve. Every person who approached him wanted something: investment capital, business partnerships, charitable donations, or simply access to his wealth and influence. Richard couldn't remember the last time someone had spoken to him with complete honesty rather than strategic politeness. Richard's insomnia was partly biological. His brain never stopped analyzing problems and generating solutions, but mostly psychological. He felt disconnected from the passionate young programmer who had started Chen Dynamics because he loved solving complex problems, not because he wanted to become wealthy. At 3:17 a.m., Richard was reviewing quarterly reports when his personal email chimed with a new message. He almost ignored it. His personal email address was supposed to be private, known only to family members and a few close friends. But the subject line caught his attention. Application for entry-level programming position. Richard opened the email expecting spam or a misdirected message, and instead found Maya Rodriguez's painfully honest cover letter. Richard read Maya's message 3 times, his expression shifting from confusion to amazement to something approaching excitement he hadn't felt about work in years. Here was someone applying for a job, not because it advanced their career strategy, but because they needed income to survive. Someone who admitted limitations rather than exaggerating qualifications. someone who was authentic about their circumstances instead of performing success they hadn't achieved. Most remarkably here was someone who had managed to maintain academic excellence while working to support their family, who had taught themselves programming skills through free resources, and who was 8 months away from earning a computer science degree, despite obviously significant financial obstacles. Richard pulled up Maya's resume and found exactly what her cover letter had promised. Evidence of steady achievement under difficult circumstances, academic performance that suggested genuine ability and self-directed learning that indicated the kind of intellectual curiosity Richard valued above formal credentials. But what impressed Richard most was Maya's closing statement. "I would rather be authentic about my circumstances than pretend to be someone I'm not." In 20 years of hiring decisions, Richard had never received an application that prioritized honesty over self-promotion. He had interviewed candidates with impressive resumes who turned out to lack basic problem-solving skills, and he had hired graduates from prestigious programs who couldn't adapt when faced with real-world challenges. Maya Rodriguez was offering something Richard hadn't known. He was looking for authentic motivation, proven resilience, and the kind of work ethic that couldn't be taught or purchased. Richard made a decision that would have shocked his human resources department and confused his board of directors. At 3:34 a.m., he began composing a response to Maya's accidental email. "Dear Maya, thank you for your application and for your remarkable honesty about your circumstances. I was impressed by your academic achievements, your self-directed learning, and most importantly, your authenticity in describing your situation. I would like to offer you a position at my company, not as an entry-level programmer, but as a special projects analyst reporting directly to me. The salary is £120,000 annually, with full benefits, flexible scheduling to accommodate your class requirements, and the opportunity to work on problems that will challenge and develop your skills. This offer comes with one condition: you must maintain the same level of honesty and directness that characterized your application. I value authentic communication above all other professional qualities. If you are interested, please reply with your availability for a phone conversation tomorrow. I realize this response may be unexpected, but sometimes the best opportunities come from the most unlikely circumstances. Sincerely, Richard Chen, CEO, Chen Dynamics." Richard sent the email at 3:41 a.m., then sat back in his chair with the first genuine smile he'd experienced in months. Maya Rodriguez was about to discover that her worst mistake had led to her best opportunity, and that sometimes the wrong door really did lead to exactly the right future. Maya woke up at 6:30 a.m. after 3 hours of fitful sleep, her mind already racing with anxiety about rent payments, grocery money, and the dozen job applications she needed to send before her morning classes. She stumbled to her laptop to check email, hoping for any response to the applications she'd submitted over the past week, but expecting the usual silence or polite rejections that had become routine over her months of job searching. What Maya found instead made her question whether she was still dreaming. An email from richardson@kegmail.com with the subject line, "Re-application for entry-level programming position," sat at the top of her inbox. Maya clicked it open, expecting either a standard rejection or a request for more information about her availability. Instead, she found Richard Chen's offer. Maya read the email 4 times before the words began to make sense. $120,000 annually, full benefits, flexible scheduling, special projects analyst, reporting directly to the CEO. Maya's first thought was that this had to be some kind of scam. No company offered 6-figure salaries to students with no professional experience. No CEO personally responded to entry-level job applications at 3:41 a.m. Maya Googled Richard Chen, CEO, Chen Dynamics, and felt her heart stop as the search results populated. Forbes articles about his $12 billion net worth. Business profiles describing him as one of the most innovative technology leaders of his generation. company websites showcasing Chen Dynamics' role in developing enterprise software for Fortune 500 companies and government agencies. This wasn't Richardson Technologies, the small startup Maya had intended to apply to. This was Chen Dynamics, one of the most successful technology companies in the world. And somehow the CEO had just offered her a job. Maya's hands trembled as she reread Richard's email, focusing on the phrase, "Sometimes the best opportunities come from the most unlikely circumstances." Did this mean he knew she had sent her application to the wrong address? Maya's second thought was that even if the offer was legitimate, she was completely unqualified for any position at a company like Chen Dynamics, let alone a role reporting directly to the CEO. Her programming experience consisted of coursework and personal projects, not the kind of advanced software development that powered enterprise systems. But Maya's third thought, emerging through her shock and anxiety, was that Richard Chen had specifically mentioned her remarkable honesty and her authenticity in describing your situation. He wasn't offering her this position despite her limitations. He was offering it because of the character she had revealed in admitting those limitations. Maya spent the next hour researching everything she could find about Richard Chen and Chen Dynamics, trying to understand what kind of person would make such an extraordinary offer to a complete stranger. What she discovered was someone whose business philosophy emphasized innovation, problem-solving, and finding unconventional solutions to complex challenges. Richard Chen was known for hiring based on potential rather than credentials, for valuing intellectual curiosity above formal experience, and for building teams of people who could think creatively under pressure. Maya also found interviews where Richard discussed his own background, the son of immigrants who had started Chen Dynamics in his college dorm room, working multiple jobs while developing the software that would eventually revolutionize data processing across multiple industries. Richard Chen understood what it meant to work while attending school, to balance academic requirements with financial necessity, and to pursue opportunities despite limited resources. At 8:15 a.m., sitting in the back of her data structures lecture, Maya made the most important decision of her academic career. She pulled out her phone and began composing a response to Richard's offer. "Dear Mr. Chen, I am both shocked and grateful to receive your offer. I must admit that I am confused about how my application reached you, as I intended to apply to a different company entirely. However, your email suggests that you may already be aware of this mistake. I need to be completely honest with you about my qualifications, because the same authenticity you mentioned valuing requires me to acknowledge that I may not be qualified for the position you are offering. My programming experience is limited to coursework and personal projects. I have never worked at a technology company, never contributed to enterprise-level software development, and never held a position with the level of responsibility you are describing. However, I can promise you that I will work harder than anyone else you could hire for this position, that I will learn whatever skills are necessary to contribute meaningfully to your company, and that I will maintain the honesty and directness you mentioned valuing. If you are still interested in speaking with me, despite my limitations, I am available for a phone conversation any time after 3 p.m. today when my classes end. Thank you for this extraordinary opportunity, regardless of what you ultimately decide. Sincerely, Maya Rodriguez." Maya sent the email during her professor's discussion of binary search trees, then spent the rest of the lecture trying to focus on algorithm complexity while processing the possibility that her life might be about to change completely. 3 hours later, Maya's phone rang with a call from a number she didn't recognize. Maya Rodriguez. The voice was warm, confident, and carried the slight accent of someone who had learned English as a second language. "This is Maya," she replied, her heart racing. "This is Richard Chen. Thank you for your honest response to my offer. I'd like to ask you a few questions if you have time to talk." Maya found a quiet corner of the campus library and settled in for what she expected to be either the most important conversation of her life or the most elaborate misunderstanding she had ever experienced. "Mr. Chen," Maya said, "before we begin, I need to ask you directly, did I send my application to you by mistake? Richard laughed, a genuine sound that put Maya slightly at ease. Yes, you did. You were applying to Richardson Technologies, but you typed my personal email address instead. An honest mistake that turned out to be the most interesting thing that's happened to me in months. Maya felt simultaneous relief and mortification. I'm so sorry for the confusion. I was exhausted when I sent that email, and I clearly wasn't paying attention to what I was typing. Maya. Richard said gently, Don't apologize for the best accident of your career. Your cover letter was the most refreshing communication I've received in years. When was the last time someone told me the complete truth about their situation, instead of trying to impress me? Maya was quiet for several seconds, processing Richard's perspective on her mistake. Now, Richard continued, I want to ask you about your response to my offer. You were honest about your limitations, which I appreciate. But I'm curious about something. Why do you think I offered you this position? Maya considered the question carefully. I honestly don't know. Based on my qualifications, I shouldn't be eligible for any position at your company, let alone one reporting to you directly. You're right, Richard agreed. Based on your formal qualifications, you wouldn't make it past the initial screening for most positions at Chen Dynamics. Maya felt her heart sink, expecting Richard to withdraw his offer. But, Richard continued, I didn't offer you this position based on your programming experience or your resume credentials. I offered it because of something much more valuable and much more rare. What's that? Maya asked. Genuine authenticity combined with proven resilience, Richard said. Maya, do you understand how unusual it is to find someone who will admit their limitations while demonstrating their determination, who will be honest about their circumstances rather than performing success they haven't achieved? Richard paused, then continued with growing enthusiasm. You've maintained a 3.9 GPA while working to support your family. You've taught yourself programming skills through free resources while balancing academic requirements with financial necessity. You've survived financial crisis without compromising your integrity or giving up on your goals. Maya listened with growing amazement as Richard described her struggles as qualifications rather than obstacles. Maya, I can teach someone programming skills. I can provide training in enterprise software development. What I cannot teach someone is the kind of work ethic that comes from understanding that failure isn't an option, or the intellectual honesty that prioritizes truth over self-promotion. Richard's voice carried complete conviction. You have both of those qualities, and they're worth more than any technical credentials you could have listed on your resume. Maya felt tears prick her eyes as someone she had never met described her character with more appreciation than she had ever shown herself. Mr. Chen, Maya said quietly, are you absolutely certain about this offer? Because if you're serious, this opportunity would change my life completely. Maya, Richard replied, I am completely serious, and I have one more question for you. What's that? When can you start? 2 weeks later, Maya Rodriguez sat in a glass-walled conference room on the 38th floor of the Chen Dynamics building in Century City, wearing a business suit she had purchased with her signing bonus, and trying to process the fact that her view included the Pacific Ocean, the Hollywood Hills, and the UCLA campus where she had been desperately searching for employment just days earlier. The transition from broke college student to special projects analyst had been surreal, but surprisingly smooth. Richard Chen had personally handled her onboarding, introducing her to key team members as someone whose problem-solving abilities and work ethic I have complete confidence in, rather than focusing on her lack of professional experience. Maya's first project was analyzing efficiency bottlenecks in Chen Dynamics customer service software. Not glamorous work, but exactly the kind of logical problem-solving that matched her academic strengths and natural analytical abilities. More importantly, Richard had been true to his word about flexible scheduling. Maya worked 30 hours per week, carefully arranged around her class schedule, with the understanding that her education remained her primary priority until graduation. The salary had solved Maya's financial crisis completely. She had paid off her overdue rent, restocked her empty refrigerator purchased, required textbooks without choosing between academic necessities and basic survival needs. For the first time in 4 years, Maya could focus on learning rather than constantly calculating whether she could afford to stay enrolled. But the most significant change in Maya's life wasn't financial. It was psychological. Richard Chen had given her something more valuable than money, the recognition that her character and determination were professional assets rather than personal limitations. Maya, Richard said, entering the conference room with the kind of energy that suggested he was genuinely excited about whatever project he was about to discuss. "How are you settling in?" Maya looked up from the data analysis she had been working on, still amazed that her opinion was valued by someone whose business decisions affected thousands of employees and millions of customers. "It's been incredible, Mr. Chen. Challenging in the best possible way, and completely different from anything I expected when I was sending out job applications." Richard sat across from Maya with the informal directness that had characterized all their interactions since her hiring. "I want to talk to you about something, and I need you to be as honest as you were in your original email." Maya felt a flutter of anxiety. "What is it?" "I've been watching your work for 2 weeks, and I'm impressed by your analytical abilities, your attention to detail, and your approach to problem solving," Richard began. "But more than that, I'm impressed by how you've handled this transition." Richard leaned forward slightly. "Maya, most people in your situation would either be intimidated into silence or would try to overcompensate by pretending to know more than they do. You've done neither. You ask thoughtful questions when you need clarification, you admit when you don't understand something, and you contribute insights that haven't occurred to people with years more experience." Maya felt warmth bloom in her chest at Richard's assessment of her performance. "Thank you," Maya said. "I've been trying to balance confidence with humility, which isn't always easy when you're the least experienced person in most meetings." Richard smiled with obvious approval. "That balance is exactly what I'm talking about. It's a rare quality, and it's why I want to discuss expanding your role." Maya's eyes widened. "Expanding how?" "I want you to start attending executive strategy meetings as an observer and occasional contributor," Richard said. "Not because you have the experience to lead strategic planning, but because you have the perspective to ask questions that the rest of us might not think to ask." Richard pulled out a tablet and showed Maya an organizational chart. "Chen Dynamics has been successful because we've built complex solutions to difficult problems. But sometimes success creates blind spots. We become so accustomed to thinking in certain ways that we miss obvious improvements or overlook simple solutions." Maya studied the chart, trying to understand what role Richard envisioned for her in high-level company strategy. "Maya, you see our systems with fresh eyes. You ask questions about why we do things certain ways not because you're challenging our methods, but because you're genuinely trying to understand the logic behind our processes." Richard paused, then continued with growing enthusiasm. "That perspective is invaluable for a company that wants to continue innovating rather than just maintaining existing success." Maya felt simultaneously excited and terrified by the opportunity Richard was describing. "Mr. Chen, I'm still a college student. I don't have the business background to contribute meaningfully to executive strategy discussions." Richard's expression showed the same patient confidence he had demonstrated throughout Maya's hiring process. "Maya, do you remember what I told you about why I hired you?" Maya nodded. "Because of authenticity and resilience, not technical qualifications." "Exactly. And now I'm asking you to apply those same qualities to strategic thinking. I don't want you to pretend to have business experience you don't possess. I want you to bring the same honest analytical approach to strategy discussions that you've brought to your data analysis work." Richard stood and walked to the window overlooking Los Angeles, the same view that had amazed Maya on her first day. "Maya Chen Dynamics has been successful because we've never been afraid to try unconventional approaches when conventional methods weren't sufficient. Hiring you was an unconventional approach to finding talent. Including you in strategic planning is an unconventional approach to maintaining innovative thinking." Richard turned back toward Maya. Are you willing to continue being part of unconventional approaches that might lead to extraordinary results? Maya looked at Richard Chen, Billionaire CEO who had somehow seen potential in her accidental email, who had transformed her desperate job search into the opportunity of a lifetime, who was now asking her to contribute to decisions that affected a $12 billion company. 6 months earlier, Maya had been choosing between textbooks and groceries. Today, she was being invited to help shape the future direction of one of the world's most successful technology companies. Mr. Chen, Maya said, feeling the same courage that had led her to send brutally honest job applications at 3 a.m. I'm willing to try, but I need you to promise me something. Richard looked curious. What's that? If I'm not adding value to these meetings, if my perspective isn't actually helpful, you'll tell me honestly rather than letting me continue out of politeness. Richard smiled with obvious delight. Maya, that's exactly the kind of directness that makes me confident this expansion of your role will benefit both you and the company. Richard extended his hand for a handshake. Deal. Complete honesty about performance in both directions. Maya shook Richard's hand, feeling like she was agreeing to much more than just attending meetings. She was agreeing to continue growing into opportunities she had never imagined possible, guided by someone who valued her authenticity more than her credentials. Deal, Maya agreed. As Richard left the conference room, Maya returned to her data analysis with renewed energy and growing confidence. The wrong email address had led her to exactly the right opportunity, and now that opportunity was expanding in ways that proved sometimes the best futures were the ones you never planned to pursue. Maya pulled out her phone and sent a text to her mother. Mama, remember when you told me that hard work and honesty would eventually be rewarded? You were right. I love you. Outside the conference room windows, Los Angeles stretched out in all directions, a city full of dreamers and strivers, students and professionals, all trying to build better lives through talent, determination, and the occasional fortunate accident. Maya Rodriguez was proof that sometimes the wrong door really did lead to exactly the right future, especially when you walked through it with authenticity, resilience, and the courage to keep being yourself even when success seemed impossible. The universe, it turned out, had excellent timing when it came to matching desperate honesty with unexpected opportunity. 8 months later, Maya Rodriguez walked across the stage at UCLA's graduation ceremony, her family cheering from the audience as she received her computer science degree with highest honors. In the crowd, sitting in a section reserved for honored guests, Richard Chen applauded with obvious pride as Maya accepted recognition for academic excellence achieved while working full-time and contributing to strategic initiatives that had helped Chen Dynamics launch 2 new product lines. Maya's role at Chen Dynamics had evolved beyond anyone's initial expectations. Her fresh perspective had led to efficiency improvements that saved the company over $3 million annually. Her questions about user experience had inspired interface redesigns that increased customer satisfaction by 40%. Most importantly, her authentic communication style had influenced company culture, encouraging other employees to prioritize honest feedback over diplomatic politeness. But Richard's most significant discovery wasn't Maya's analytical abilities or her strategic insights. It was her natural leadership potential. Maya's colleagues respected her not because of her position, but because of her character. She listened carefully to different perspectives, asked thoughtful questions that helped teams identify blind spots, and approached conflicts with the goal of finding solutions rather than assigning blame. After graduation, Maya had accepted Richard's offer to transition to a full-time role as Director of Strategic Innovation, making her the youngest executive in Chen Dynamics history. Her salary had increased to $180,000 annually, with equity options that reflected Richard's confidence in her long-term value to the company. But more than the professional success, Maya had gained something she hadn't known. She was looking for a mentor who believed in her potential more than she believed in it herself, and who continued to challenge her to grow into opportunities that initially seemed beyond her capabilities. Maya, Richard said, as they walked together toward the reception following her graduation ceremony. I want to ask you something I've been thinking about for months. Maya looked curious, accustomed by now to Richard's habit of presenting unexpected opportunities disguised as casual conversations. Do you remember your original cover letter? Richard asked. The one you sent to my email address by accident. Maya laughed. How could I forget the most desperate and honest job application in history? In that letter you wrote that you would rather be authentic about your circumstances than pretend to be someone you weren't. Richard continued. That philosophy has guided every success you've achieved at Chen Dynamics. Richard paused as they reached the reception area, where Maya's family was waiting to celebrate her graduation, alongside Chen Dynamics colleagues who had become genuine friends. I want to ask you to consider taking that philosophy even further, Richard said. Maya felt the familiar flutter of excitement and nervousness that accompanied Richard's most ambitious proposals. What do you mean? I mean starting your own company, Richard said simply. With my backing, my mentorship, and complete freedom to build something that reflects your vision of how technology should serve people. Maya stared at Richard, processing an offer that exceeded even her expanded understanding of what opportunities might be possible. My own company? Maya asked. Your own company. Richard confirmed. You've proven that you can think strategically, lead teams, and identify solutions that more experienced people miss. You've also shown that you can maintain authentic leadership principles even as your responsibilities increase. Richard smiled with the same confidence he had shown when offering Maya her first position 8 months earlier. Maya, you're ready to build something from the ground up, something that combines your technical skills with your understanding of how to create genuine value for users. Maya looked across the reception area at her mother, who was crying happy tears, while talking to Maya's professors about her daughter's achievements. Maria Rodriguez had worked double shifts for years to help Maya stay in school, never doubting that education would eventually create opportunities for a better life. Mr. Chen, Maya said, using the formal address she still preferred, despite Richard's repeated invitations to call him by his first name. 8 months ago, I was desperately applying for entry-level jobs because I couldn't afford groceries. Now you're suggesting I start my own technology company. 8 months ago, you were someone with exceptional character who hadn't yet been given the opportunity to demonstrate exceptional abilities, Richard corrected. Today you're someone who has proven that character and ability combined with the right support can achieve remarkable results. Richard's expression became more serious. Maya, I'm not suggesting this because I want to do you a favor. I'm suggesting it because I believe you're capable of building something significant, and because Chen Dynamics would benefit from partnering with a company led by someone whose values align with our commitment to innovation and integrity. Maya felt the same decision-making process she had experienced when Richard first offered her a job, the choice between safe limitations and uncertain possibilities, between accepting current circumstances and reaching for opportunities that felt beyond her qualifications. What kind of company are you envisioning? Maya asked. Richard's eyes lit up with enthusiasm. That's entirely up to you. Whatever problem you think technology should solve, whatever user experience you think could be improved, whatever market opportunity you think existing companies are missing. And you would provide funding and mentorship. I would provide initial capital, strategic guidance, and access to Chen Dynamics resources when appropriate, Richard clarified. But the vision, the leadership, and the decision-making would be completely yours. Maya looked around the graduation reception, at her family celebrating her academic achievement, at her Chen Dynamics colleagues, who had become trusted friends at the UCLA campus, where she had spent 4 years learning that intelligence and determination could overcome almost any obstacle. Can I think about it? Maya asked. Richard smiled. Maya, you can take as long as you need to make this decision. But I want you to know that regardless of what you choose, I'm proud of everything you've accomplished and grateful for everything you've contributed to Chen Dynamics. As the reception continued around them, Maya felt overwhelmed by gratitude for the accidental email that had connected her with someone who saw potential she hadn't recognized in herself. The wrong address had led to the right mentor, the right opportunities, and now the possibility of building something entirely her own. Maya Rodriguez had learned that sometimes the best futures were the ones you never planned to pursue, guided by people who believed in your character more than your credentials, supported by mentors who challenged you to grow into opportunities that initially seemed impossible. 3 months later, Maya submitted her resignation letter to Chen Dynamics and founded Rodriguez Tech Solutions, focusing on developing user-friendly software for small businesses and non-profit organizations. The same communities that had shaped her understanding of authentic service and genuine value creation. Richard Chen provided seed funding and served on her advisory board, but Maya built her company according to her own vision of how technology could serve people who were often overlooked by larger corporations. The accidental email that had saved Maya's college career became the foundation for a business philosophy that prioritized authenticity over performance, substance over style, and genuine problem-solving over impressive marketing. Maya's first hire was her younger brother Carlos, who had just graduated from high school with exceptional grades and dreams of studying computer science at UCLA. Her second hire was her former tutor supervisor, a graduate student whose student loan debt had prevented him from accepting unpaid internships at major tech companies. Rodriguez Tech Solutions grew steadily, guided by Maya's commitment to hiring based on character and potential, rather than credentials and connections, the same philosophy that had transformed her own career when Richard Chen took a chance on a desperate email sent to the wrong address. 2 years after graduation, Maya Rodriguez was featured on the cover of Forbes magazine as one of 30 under 30 entrepreneurs changing technology. But the achievement that made her proudest was the company culture she had created. A place where authenticity was valued above performance, where mistakes were treated as learning opportunities rather than failures, and where success was measured by the positive impact on users' lives rather than just revenue growth. The wrong email had led to exactly the right future, proving that sometimes the best destinations were the ones you reached by accident, guided by mentors who saw potential you didn't know you possessed, supported by people who believed that character mattered more than credentials. Maya kept a framed copy of her original cover letter in her office, not as a reminder of desperation, but as proof that honesty about limitations could become the foundation for unlimited possibilities when it reached the right person at exactly the right moment. The universe, she had learned, had excellent timing when it came to connecting authentic need with unexpected opportunity, even when that connection required typing the wrong email address at 3 a.m. and trusting that honesty would be valued more than perfection.